Assalamu alaikum. Dear brothers and sisters, here is a new video for you. The undeniable Macoraba, the Greek name of ancient Mecca. It is well known to every educated man and woman that the Greeks called Medina as Iathrippa and Mecca as Macoraba. But Dan Gibson and his supporter Jay Smith vainly try to deny this fact. We want to ask Dan Gibson, Jay Smith and the other anti-Mecca people. Where is Macoraba if it is not Mecca? Which city now is it? Why do they deny the fact? The Greeks from the time immemorial called it Macoraba, the mention of which in Ptolemy's map is only a reflection of that fact. No, the name was not given by Ptolemy. Mecca's identity to the Greeks as Macoraba is more ancient than even the rise of Alexander the Great. According to the great historian William Robertson Smith, Mecca, Arab Mecca, was the chief town of the Hejaz in Arabia. It is situated about 45 miles almost due east, from Jeddah on the Red Sea. Thus on a rough estimate Mecca lies in 21 degrees 25 north, 39 degrees 50 east. It is said in the Quran, Surah number 14, verse number 40, that Mecca lies in a sterile valley, and the old geographers observe that the whole haram or sacred territory round the city is almost without cultivation or date palms, while fruit trees, springs, wells, gardens and green valleys are found immediately beyond. Mecca in fact lies in the heart of a mass of rough hills, intersected by a labyrinth of narrow valleys and passes, and projecting into the Tehama or low country on the Red Sea, in front of the great mountain wall that divides the coastlands from the central plateau, though in turn they are themselves separated from the sea by a second curtain of hills forming the western wall of the Great Wadi Mar. The inner mountain wall is pierced by only two great passes, and the valleys descending from these embrace on both sides the Mecca hills. Holding this position commanding two great routes between the lowlands and inner Arabia and situated in a narrow and barren valley incapable of supporting an urban population, Mecca must have been from the first a commercial center. In the palmy days of South Arabia it was probably a station on the Great Incense route, and thus Ptolemy may have learned the name, which he writes Macoraba. At all events, long before Muhammad we find Mecca established in the twofold quality of a commercial center and a privileged holy place, surrounded by an inviolable territory, the Haram, which was not the sanctuary of a single tribe but a place of pilgrimage, where religious observances were associated with a series of annual fairs at different points in the vicinity. Indeed, in the unsettled state of the country commerce was possible only under the sanctions of religion, and through the provisions of the sacred truce which prohibited war for 4 months of the year, 3 of these being the month of pilgrimage, with those immediately preceding and following. The first of the series of fairs in which the Meccans had an interest was at Okaz on the easier road between Mecca and Tf, where there was also a sanctuary, and from it the visitors moved on to points still nearer Mecca, Majana, and finally Dhul Majats, on the flank of Jebel Kabkab behind Arafah, where further fairs were held, culminating in the special religious ceremonies of the great feast at Arafah, Qusa, Muzdalifah, and Mecca itself. The system of intercalation in the lunar calendar of the heathen Arabs was designed to secure that the feast should always fall at the time when the hides, fruits and other merchandise were ready for market, and the Meccans, who knew how to attract the Bedouins by hospitality, bought up these wares in exchange for imported goods, and so became the leaders of the international trade of Arabia. Their caravans traversed the length and breadth of the peninsula. Syria, and especially Gaza, was their chief goal. Mecca by William Robertson Smith. Anybody can search in the Google by his name. Let the blind flatterers of Dan Gibson and Jay Smith prove anything wrong in these pronouncements. They only say that Dan is right but cannot reply when they are questioned. These fools swarm around like locusts whenever anything wrong is pronounced by those two. We feel extremely sorry for the lowest state of their minds. Dan Gibson has tried his best to wipe out Macoraba from the atlas but failed, because Ptolemy's map is the most unavoidable, authentic document of all times. Macoraba and Iathripa in Ptolemy's map stand on the same points of Mecca and Medina of modern map. Nobody can deny it. The river shown in Ptolemy's map rather proves its accuracy, as there were rivers in Arabia in his time. Anybody challenging this truth must prove by excavation that Arab lands were always bare of rivers. He or she must prove their authenticity by showing source of natural oil and gas in Saudi Arabia, because these two minerals prove that Arabia was full of fauna and flora one day, which was not possible without the existence of rivers at that time. Neither Dan Gibson nor Jay Smith can hide this scientific truth in the name of their crazy scientific research. None of them ever excavated a single spot of Saudi Arabia to prove what they claim. None of them ever entered Mecca to see by their own eyes what is what in Mecca. So, nothing of whatever they claim is believable. All they say are false,